today's video, I bring for you 100 odd questions that will completely cover the history and civics portion. You have the semester 2 examination coming up, and if you do these 100 questions well, you will surely do very well, score very well in the examination. So let's begin the complete revision for history and civics. We'll begin with history first. The first chapter is the First World War. What are some probable questions that might be asked from this chapter? And what are the answers to those questions? Name the war that lasted from 1914 to 1919. Yes, this is the duration of World War I. You should know the time, 1914 to 1919. How was nationalism and imperialism a cause for World War I? This is a very important question. You should be able to write at least 4 points on this, 2 points on nationalism, 2 points on imperialism. If you get this question, ideally you will get it in the long question section. Also, when you're writing about nationalism and imperialism, you can write the definition of each, and then you can give examples. For nationalism, you can write about the efforts to make one Balkan state. You can talk about the efforts made by France to get back Alsace and Lorraine. Imperialism, you can talk about the powerful nations who wanted to have other countries under their control and make them into colonies. The next question, how was Europe divided before World War I? Now, this question, be very careful. When you talk about Europe being divided before World War I, here you write about the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. You should know the countries in the Triple Alliance. You should know the countries in the Triple Entente. That can be one important question. What was the immediate cause of World War I? Yes, it is the Sarajevo crisis. You could be asked questions like, whose assassination led to the outbreak of World War I? Which country was blamed? That was Serbia. You could also get a question saying, what was the Sarajevo crisis? There's a picture pertaining to this topic. Have a good look at it. There could be questions based on it. So Europe was divided into two camps, but when the war was on, the First World War was fought between two groups. What are the groups? The names given to them were Allied Powers and Axis powers. So again, you should know the names of the countries in the Allied powers and the names of the countries in the Axis powers. When was the Treaty of Versailles signed? 28 June 1919, very important date. Next, what were the clauses of the Treaty of Versailles? Now, when you're studying this, make sure you study it in detail. The clauses of the treaty that were humiliating for Germany, who was declared guilty of aggression, Germany, how much fine, how much war indemnity did Germany have to pay, $33 billion. Then you should also study how other countries benefited from this Treaty of Versailles, such as France, Denmark, Poland, which territories were given to them, what happened to the Rhine Valley. Then very important, how did the Treaty of Versailles cripple the military strength of Germany? So talk about the army being fixed to 1 lakh soldiers, the navy fixed to 15,000 men, no air force, no submarines, and just 24 ships. So that is the part which talks about the limitations on the army of Germany. There were also a few territories that were declared independent. That could also be asked. Name some countries that got independence. Next, name the organization that was formed to maintain world peace after World War I. So that is the League of Nations. Okay, so these are, if you do this, this chapter is thoroughly covered. The next question should be, the next chapter is from the rise of dictatorships. Here, what is the important topic? You need to know the 4 similarities at least between Nazism and fascism. So apart from that, you should know what is Nazism, what is fascism. They were called as totalitarian ideologies. Where did they become popular? In Italy, it was fascism. In Germany, it was Nazism. Who made it popular in Italy? Benito Mussolini. Who made the totalitarian ideology of Nazism popular in Germany? It was Adolf Hitler. Have a good look at the picture of both these people, Benito Mussolini and Hitler, and the similarities. There was a question on the specimen paper where it was asked, which is not a similarity. So be thorough with that. This is important. The next chapter is the Second World War. Now, in this, the first question is, how was fascism and Nazism a cause for World War II? So here you will write that under fascism, what did Italy do? It attacked Abyssinia. Under Nazism, what did Hitler do? He annexed Austria, he dismembered Czechoslovakia. This becomes a reason for World War II. Which Chinese territory was invaded by Japan? That's Manchuria. Why did League of Nations fail? Very important questions. So here you can write points such as the League of Nations. It was powerless to act when in the face of determined aggressors, such as when Italy wanted to attack Abyssinia, Japan invaded Manchuria, then Austria annexed Germany, Poland attacked Lithuania. These are 4 examples given. And also you can mention that the US did not join the League of Nations. Also, the League's authority was defied and ignored in major crisis. So this was the reason why the League of Nations failed. It's an important question. What was the immediate cause of World War II? That is the invasion of Poland by Hitler. This question can come as, why did Hitler demand the Danzig corridor? It's the same thing. Or what was the immediate cause of World War II? Or what was right about Hitler's invasion of Poland? So this topic can come under 3 headings. The points are the same. Be thorough with this. What is the period of the Second World War? It is from 1939 to 1945. Now, if they ask you something like, who won World War II? So the war that was fought between the Allied powers and the Axis powers. You should know which are the Axis powers. You should know which are the Allied powers, which are the Allied powers, which are the Axis powers. The war was won by the Allied powers. Okay, this is important. So once again, let me tell you, you should know the countries that formed the Triple Alliance, the countries that formed the Triple Entente, the countries in the Axis powers, and the countries in the Allied powers. And it's easy to remember Axis powers. There was a Berlin, Rome, Tokyo axis. So those very countries were the Axis powers. Next, we have the lesson, the United Nations. What are some important questions you should know? The significance of 24th October 1945. This is the day when the United Nations was established. It was in San Francisco. Every year, 24th October is celebrated as United Nations Day. Objectives of the UN are important. If you see in your book, there are certain objectives that are given in italics. Even if you simply learn those and write, you should get full marks. Name 2 organs of the UN. Now remember, organs of the UN are different and agencies, specialized agencies are different. So how many organs of the UN are we studying? We're studying only 3. Security Council, we are studying General Assembly and International Court of Justice. So if they ask you organs, remember to give the names of these 2. But if they ask specialized agencies, then we write UNESCO, UNICEF and WHO. What is the composition of the General Assembly? Important question. 193 members in the United Nations today. So all those 193 members are part of the General Assembly. The last country to become a member of the United Nations was South Sudan. Then very important, what is the composition of the Security Council? So it has 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. So 5 permanent members, A, B, C, F, R. If you can remember this equation, A, B, C, F, R, that is America, Britain, China, France, and Russia. Okay. Then the next, what is the veto power? So when you talk about veto power, this is a special power that is given to the permanent members of the Security Council. What does it mean? It means a negative vote. If a negative vote is exercised by a permanent member of the Security Council, then a decision will not be taken. What are the powers and functions of the Security Council? Again, very important, learn at least 4. Name the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. Judicial organ, so that is the International Court of Justice. What is the composition of the ICJ? There are 15 judges in all, and they each have a 9-year tenure. What are the powers and functions of the International Court of Justice? This is a very important question. If you look in your book, you'll find there is something called as voluntary jurisdiction and something called as compulsory jurisdiction. Apart from that, there is a heading called codification of law. That is also a power of the International Court of Justice. So you can study that. It's very important. The next lesson is the major agencies of the United Nations. So in this, first thing you need to know is the full form of UNICEF, UNESCO, and WHO. UNICEF stands for United Nations Children's Fund. International and emergency has been dropped. So if they ask you, then the full form of UNICEF is United Nations Children's Fund. UNESCO, remember, it's educational, scientific, cultural. So if the option says science, education, culture, then it will be wrong. WHO, World Health Organization, you should know the functions of each, at least 4 you learn them. What is the significance of 7th April? It is World Health Day. The next important thing that you need to study is UNESCO, the functions of UNESCO in particularly the field of education, science, and preservation of cultural heritage. So learn at least 2 points for education, 2 for science, and 2 for cultural heritage. If they specify and ask you in the exam, what role has the UNESCO played in the preservation of cultural heritage or in the field of education, science, and you have to write the points that are pertaining to this field only. The next chapter is non-aligned movement. Under non-aligned movement, you should know the meaning of non-aligned. That is important. What does the non-alignment movement mean? Then name the founding fathers of man. Again, very important. See the picture of Abdul Nasir, then Joseph Tito, then Pandit Nehru. Have a good look at the picture and see the full name, which country they belong to. They are referred to as the architects of man or the founding fathers of man. What are the objectives of the non-aligned movement? Again, learn at least 4 of them, at least 4. Now, with this, we come to the end of the history portion. We'll go to civics now. When you are studying civics, now civics I have given a little more than what is there in the text, so that you have a thorough revision of the civics portion. Your MCQs should not be very challenging. You should be able to do them well. So if you know the answers to these questions, I'm sure you'll be able to tackle the MCQs well. So first chapter, civics, president and the vice president. So questions can come such as, who is the head of the Indian Union? That's the president. Why is the president called a nominal head or a head only in name? Because he exercises his powers on the advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Again, on whose advice he exercises his powers? The Prime Minister. What are the qualifications required to be a president? It's a very important question. Citizen of India, 35 years of age, and he should be qualified to be a member of the Lok Sabha. When it comes to the vice president, he should be qualified to be a member of the Rajya Sabha. Other qualifications remain the same. Name the body that elects the president, which is the Electoral College. What is the composition of the Electoral College for the president's election? Now keep in mind, if it's the president's election, the Electoral College has a different composition. If it is the vice president's election, the Electoral College has a different composition. So who all are there in the Electoral College that elects the president? Remember to write the keyword elected members. So your answer will be elected members of the Lok Sabha, elected members of the Rajya Sabha, elected members of the State Legislative Assembly, and elected members from the Union Territory of Puducherry and Delhi. Okay, but for the Vice President, it's only the elected members of Lok Sabha and elected members of Rajya Sabha. Which members of the House do not take part in presidential election? Very important. Nominated members do take part in the presidential election. 2 reasons for the indirect election of the president. It's a direct question. It is there in the specimen paper as well. Who administers the oath of office to the President of India? It is the Chief Justice of India. What is the term of the office of the President? 5 years. He can appear for another term in the. He can appear for another term. How long can he remain in office even after the expiry of his term? Office term. This is a misprint. Even after the expiry of his term, it is he remains in office until his successor arrives. Under what condition did the office of the president vacant? Under what conditions can the office of the president be vacant? So what are the conditions? 1, he's absent. 2nd, he's dead. He has resigned, or he is impeached. What is the procedure for the removal of the president called? It is impeachment. Describe the procedure of impeachment. Describe the procedure of impeachment. There's a proper procedure. Remember, the resolution to impeach the president can be raised in either house. The House will investigate the charge. If it is passed by 2/3 majority, it goes on to the other house. The other house then will check the charges. If they also pass it by a 2/3 majority, then the president will be asked to be present before the investigation. And if it is passed by both the houses, if the resolution is cleared by both the houses by a 2/3 majority, then the president is impeached. That is the procedure of impeachment. Important. Now we come to the powers of the president. You must know executive powers, legislative powers, discretionary powers, and emergency powers. Executive powers are very easy to remember. Just remember, wherever the president is spoken of as being a head, or where he's making appointments, those become his executive powers. So he's the head of the union, he becomes the head of the state when there's a president's rule, he's the head of the union territories, he's the head of the border areas, or he makes appointments such as the appointment of the prime minister, appointing the chief justice of India. All these come under executive powers. In the last video also, I had mentioned this, that to remember this very well, just remember the small equation, the small formula, E is equal to A. If E is equal to A, that means executive powers are equal to the appointments. Then when you talk about legislative powers, remember, legislative powers, all the powers that the president is exercising in connection with the lawmaking process. So anything got to do with the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha will become the legislative power of the president. So addressing the Parliament, issuing an ordinance, nominating members, dissolving the Lok Sabha, summoning and proroguing the House, all of them are legislative powers. Discretionary powers, let's look at the word discretionary. So in English, what does it mean? It means to use your own judgment. So what are the cases in which the president uses his own judgment? So in your book, you will find 3 examples. Very important question. This has come the last time we had the exam. What are the emergency powers of the president? Here, remember, there are 2 or 3 powers that are clearly outlined. You could write something like he can dissolve the Vidhan Sabha. In case of a financial emergency, he can set up a finance commission. He also he can declare an emergency. And when he has to declare an emergency, he has to have the confirmation that the peace and the security of the country is threatened, and it must be conveyed to him by the cabinet in writing. That is the time when he can declare an emergency. Next important question, what is an emergency? Name the 3 types of emergencies. Again, this is very important. Get the names correct. The 2 occasions when the president can address both the houses of the parliament, it's also a very important question. You can check this under legislative powers. What are the 2 occasions? When he addresses both the houses at the first session after the general election, or at the first session at the beginning of every year. It could also be an emergency. How many members can the president nominate to the Rajya Sabha? He can nominate 12 people. Again, he's nominating to the Rajya Sabha. This is a power that is connected to the Rajya Sabha. So this power to nominate people to the Rajya Sabha becomes a legislative power. What is an ordinance? What is an ordinance? Or how does an ordinance show? The spelling is wrong. How does the ordinance show the nominal status of the president? So remember, the nominal status of the president. What does it mean? It means that the president is a head only a thing. Yes, when an ordinance is passed, it must be approved by both the houses within 6 weeks. If not, then it gets scrapped. It is declared as null and void, and therefore it shows that the president's power is nominal. The vice president now must be qualified to be a member of which house? He must be qualified to be a member of the Rajya Sabha. Okay, this is important. The president must be qualified to be a member of the Lok Sabha. Then, important question, who administers the oath of office to the president? It is the Chief Justice of India. To the vice president, it is the president who administers the oath of office to him. How can the vice president be removed? Very important question. All of you note it down. The vice president is removed by a resolution that is passed by both the houses. That's it. There's a resolution for his removal. There is no impeachment procedure for the vice president. Only for the president we have impeachment. The next chapter, Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Again, important questions from here that cover the full chapter. One feature of a parliamentary form of government. What is one important feature? The Prime Minister is the real head. He advises the president. Who appoints the Prime Minister? Who appoints the Prime Minister? The President. Who is appointed the Prime Minister? The leader of the party that secures a majority. When no single party secures a majority, then which power can the President use to appoint a Prime Minister? He can use his discretion. He can use his discretionary powers. Very important. Can a non-member of the parliament be appointed as a minister? Yes, he can be appointed. A non-member can be appointed, but what is the condition? He must get himself elected to the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha within 6 months, failing which his post will be taken away from him. What are the different categories of ministers in the order of their hierarchy? So, right, cabinet ministers, ministers of state, and deputy ministers. You should also know a little bit about them. Very important question, who determines the policy and program of the government? That's the cabinet. You should also know a short description of the cabinet. Who administers the oath of office to a minister? It's the president. How long do the ministers hold office? Now, to this question, the answer is as long as they keep the president happy, as long as the president is pleased with them, the pleasure of the president. That's how the textbook puts it. But basically, yes, it is the prime minister who should be happy with them. Very, very important question. What is the distinction between council of ministers and the cabinet ministers? There's a table, you can write that. If this comes as a long answer, if it comes only for 1 mark, then you can just mention cabinet ministers can give to the president in writing, and then an emergency can be declared. That shows that the cabinet ministers are superior to the other council of ministers. Then in the book, very important, there is the heading about the prime minister, his position and his powers. So over there are 4 headings which you should know very well. The prime minister and his role in connection with the president, the first 4 points. Then the prime minister as a link between the president and council of ministers. Again, there are 3 clear points in your book. The prime minister as the head of the cabinet, or the prime minister as the keystone of the cabinet arch. Again, there are very clear points. Please learn them. Prime minister inside the parliament, what does he do? Spokesperson, defense policies. Again, there are 4 points. And finally, prime minister as the leader of the nation. This is also important. You should have at least 4 points ready. This can come as a long answer. It can come in the MCQ. What are the effective checks on the power of the prime minister? Or what are the limitations? So you can write the press, the public opinion, the opposition. These are some of the points. What is the concept of collective responsibility and individual responsibility? Very, very important. Especially collective responsibility is a very important point. Remember, because of collective responsibility, when a no confidence motion is passed, then it has to be, then all the ministry has to resign. Next question is from judiciary. We go to the Supreme Court first. It is the apex court, the topmost court in the country. Name the apex court. It's the Supreme Court. What is the composition of the Supreme Court? It is the Chief Justice of India plus 33 other judges. Who decides the number of judges in the Supreme Court? The Parliament. What are the qualifications required? Please write both the duration and the designation. Means if he has to be a judge of a high court for 5 years or an advocate of a high court for 10 years. So both those segments are important when you want the answer to be correct. Who appoints the judge of the High Supreme Court? If it is for 1 mark, write president. If it's a long answer, then write the president of India in consultation with the judges of the Supreme Court, the High Court, the Council of Ministers, if it's a long answer. How long will the judge of the Supreme Court remain in office? He can remain in office. This is not correct. How long can he remain in office? He will remain in office till he reaches the age of 65. Okay, that is the point. Correct. He remains in office till he reaches the age of 65. What is the procedure for the removal of a judge called? Yes, it's impeachment. On what grounds can a judge be removed? Remember, grounds: proved misbehavior and incapacity. In some books, it's written violation of the constitution. That may also be considered. What is the procedure for removal called? Okay, the question got repeated. Impeachment. What is the criteria? Now, when they ask you criteria, please mention criteria is seniority. Okay, the criteria is seniority. These are finding it difficult to write. Okay, criteria is seniority, but qualifications are when you are mentioning the judicial office and the duration. Okay. Next question is, what do you mean by jurisdiction? There's a definition of jurisdiction in your book. There are three types of jurisdiction that are enjoyed by the Supreme Court. You should know what is original jurisdiction, examples of original jurisdiction. You should know appellate jurisdiction, examples of appellate jurisdiction, very important. Next, what does the Supreme Court do to ensure fundamental rights? It issues writs. You should know the names of the writs. Okay, so to ensure fundamental rights, the Supreme Court can issue writs such as habeas corpus, mandamus, quo warranto, writ certiorari. So all these are important. What is revisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court and judicial review? This is a very, very important question, and there's a common tendency for children, and they get confused. Remember, when you talk about revisory jurisdiction, here the Supreme Court is reviewing its own decisions. Because it is a court of record, it cannot allow wrong judgment or mistakes to continue. Other courts have to give a similar judgment in a similar case, and hence the revisory jurisdiction is important. But when you say judicial review, here the Supreme Court can review the laws made by the Union legislature and the state legislature. And if it finds that the law is violating the Constitution, the letter of the Constitution, the spirit of the Constitution, it can declare it ultra vires or null and void. Okay, very important. There's a common tendency to get confused over here. Please be very clear what is revisory and what is judicial review. And finally, why is the Supreme Court called a court of record? It's called a court of record. Why? Because its judgments are preserved as testimony. They are used as precedents. Lower courts have to give a similar decision. Apart from all this that you write in the court of record, also mention a person may be punished for contempt of court. What is contempt of court? Anything that has been done to lower the dignity of the court. For example, if a person has been summoned and the person does not appear in court, that would be called contempt of court. Okay. Finally, we come to high courts. Now, when you talk about high courts, how many high courts are there in India? You should know this, which is the only union territory to have a high court of its own. That's Delhi. Name a high court that has a jurisdiction over more than one state. You can write the High Court of Bombay. Then you can write about, yes, the next question is composition of the High Court. Composition of the High Court is the Chief Justice and other judges as specified by the Parliament. Also mention that the composition of the High Court varies from one state to another depending upon the population of the state. What are the qualifications required to be appointed as a judge of the High Court? Again, that's important. Who appoints the Chief Justice of the High Court? Yes, it is the President again, but he has to consult the Chief Justice of India and, very important, the governor of that state. How long does the judge of a high court remain in office? He remains in office till he has acquired the age of 62. At 62, he will retire. What is the procedure for removal? Yes, it is impeachment. That is important. Finally, subordinate courts. What do you mean by subordinate courts? All courts in the district below the High Court and the Supreme Court are known as subordinate courts. Name the highest court in the district that handles civil cases. It is Court of the District Judge. Name the highest criminal court in the district, that is the Sessions Judge. This is very, very important. These two questions are very, very important. Highest civil court, highest criminal court. Then, what is the difference between criminal courts and civil courts? Or what is the distinction between the court of the district judge and the court of the sessions judge? These two questions are same. Okay, these two questions are same. Please look at the difference. There's a nice table in your textbook. It's important, very important. Learn at least 3 points so that you are able to answer it well. Finally, what do you mean by Lok Adalat? Lok Adalat means people's court. And what are the advantages? It gives speedy justice, fast and inexpensive justice. It reduces the burden of the other courts, and it also provides social justice because it gives legal aid to the weaker sections of the society. That's all. If you know all these answers, I assure you, if you know them well, you will score very well in your history and civics paper. So I wish you all the best. Continue to revise. Happy learning.